everyone, it is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. And so last week I posted my top 10 tips on how to be successful in online classes. So today we are going to be talking about how to take notes in online classes, which I think it's so wild that it is literally August, it is back to school season, and it seems like for a lot of you are going to be having online classes in the fall. So for me, I just graduated from college and I had half of my last semester in college online, so I thought that I would share how I started taking notes in online classes because it is definitely different than how I took notes in in-person classes, and I still managed to get straight A's on my college transcript while taking online classes last semester. But before we get started, I wanted to announce that Study Hall College Consulting is now live, so you can check out our website at this link, or it will be linked in the description down below. But basically, myself and a team of UC Berkeley students will be reading your college application essays, as well as doing consulting calls with high school students, college students, just basically if anyone needs any kind of advice. So definitely check out that link if you wanted to learn more and see what services we are offering. So without further ado, let's get started. And so in this video, I'm going to be talking more about classes where it's heavy note-taking, so maybe like reading heavy classes, English where you have to write a lot, analyze reading, stuff like that, versus like the computer science, math classes that I have taken are a lot less note-taking and a lot more drilling the material. So in those kinds of classes, I would still take notes via pen and paper because I felt like taking notes on the computer for like a math class sort of got difficult if you're trying to input like a theorem or a formula or something like that, and then you have to like search on your laptop for that kind of like square root sign. So I prefer taking notes via pen and paper, and honestly studies have shown that taking notes via pen and paper helps you memorize and learn the material better. So for exams in the math and CS courses, it's definitely a lot more going back over the practice materials that you've gotten. So maybe practice exams, drilling these practice exams, doing all of them timed, untimed, making sure that you can do the questions on past exams, because very similar things are probably going to come up on exams in the future, as well as like redoing the homework, redoing the projects that you did in class, assignments, stuff like that. For those kinds of classes, it's just a lot more drilling rather than taking notes and like memorizing something. That's basically a rundown on how I would study for those classes. I don't think that kind of studying has changed in the pandemic, because with online classes, you can still take your notes, you can still write down the proofs, the theorems, how to do this kind of code in your notebook, and then you would just practice it, drill it before going to the exam. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about my reading intensive classes. So I was a cognitive science and legal studies major in college. With cognitive science, we had to take like computer science, math courses. So that was that side of the note-taking. And then with my legal studies major, it's definitely a lot more reading intensive, analyzing Supreme Court cases, how you think about cases, stuff like that. And so that is where my note-taking comes in handy. So basically, my note-taking style is a 3-step process. First, I will take notes in class. Second, before the exams or tests, I will go back and review all of my notes and actually go back and look at the PowerPoint slides that were given to us and then copy the PowerPoint slides into my notes. And then third, I will like literally memorize everything on my notes. So when taking notes in in-person classes, I would just use a notebook, but I found that because online classes are a thing now, it was easier to take notes on the computer. So I would just have my dual monitors set up, Zoom on one screen, and then my notes on the other screen, and then I can just type. So something big that I learned in college is that when I was taking notes, I would typically just copy everything that was on the slide, which is a big freaking waste of time because you're going to get provided provided those PowerPoint slides later. Oftentimes, like, the lectures are recorded, so if you did miss something, you can go back and listen to it again later on. So my biggest tip, it would definitely be to not write everything that's on the PowerPoint slides in class down, because you can do that later. What has helped me get really good grades in college is that I stopped just copying the PowerPoint slides, but I would actually just write down or type everything that the professor was saying in class. Because oftentimes, the professor isn't just reading off the PowerPoint slide, but they're going into more details with their words, they're going into examples, they're going into other things. And that has honestly helped save my grades so many times, because if you're just copying the PowerPoint slides, you are not really listening, you're not really taking in any of the information. That's not how you should study, that's not how you should learn. And so really listening, sitting there, digesting the information, writing down the main points of what the professor is saying versus what's on the PowerPoint slide is the way to go. So in my notes, I would just put the lecture, the date, and then the title of the lecture if that was provided, and then make it a header on Google Docs. And this is great because on Google Docs, then you can go to the header settings, and then you can actually see every single header that you created. So it's super easy to just see a very visual summary of your entire week, semester, all of the lectures. So I can be like, oh, on this date we learned about this, on that date we learned about that. So it's really easy to then find information that you need to study, or write an essay or something like that. And then in my notes for each slide that we went through, I would just type the title of the slide, and then I would start listening to what the professor is saying and just start taking notes about what the professor was saying. So this goes into step 2 of my taking notes strategy, is that for step 2, before an essay was due or before an exam or something like that, I would spend so much freaking time going back into every single lecture that we had and looking at the PowerPoint slides, pulling it up right next to the notes that I have taken for that day, and then copying all of the information from the PowerPoint slide into my notes. And so like I was saying, in my notes, when I just type in the title of each PowerPoint slide, now it's really, really easy to connect the two. And so for each PowerPoint slide that I see now, I can copy that information super easy and then quickly put it and type it and learn it and then stick it into my notes. And so this step honestly takes hours and hours and hours, because you are going through the information again. I found it so helpful because I'm getting a refresher of the entire period before my exam, of all of the lectures that I need to write my essay on, because I'm reading the PowerPoint slides and I'm also reading my notes at the same time, and I'm like, okay, I see where this connects, and then I'm also typing the information from the slides into my notes. And so this was so freaking helpful because it started to help me work with the material a second time, rather than just okay, I saw it in lecture once, I forgot about it, I never saw it again before the exam. But by doing this, you're giving your brain a refresher, you see it again, and you're actually learning the material rather than just haha, I'm just copying, I'm just typing it down, but you really start to digest the material in this step. At the end of it, you have a 50 to 70 page document of your midterm 1 or midterm 2, or everything that you need for your final exam. So that brings us to step 3, where we are going to be memorizing and learning all of the material that we just typed into our 75-page review guide. And I found taking notes this way is super helpful also, because even when the professor is giving a study guide or questions that you can consider for the exam, having your notes set up this way really helps you to fill out the study guides, or just when I think about the study guide question and skim over it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that in my notes, because I've spent so many hours typing my notes already, analyzing the material, I remember learning about that. Versus if you never looked at your notes again, then you'd be like, what the heck is that? I don't remember learning that. And when you see it on the study guide, you won't even know what lecture it's from. And so this step definitely, it takes a lot of hard work, dedication, time commitment. You really have to sit down and memorize and learn all the material. So you really have to find your groove. And so it might not not be the same way I memorize my material, but you might have a totally different way to memorize your material. For me, memory is just drilling, and I write it down. I will keep drilling it. I will cover it up and try to replicate it again until it becomes super rote memory where I don't even really need to think about it, but I can just copy everything down on my piece of paper. So when the exam time comes, you just know everything. And I think that goes the same for like mathematical formulas and stuff. If they're not giving you a math formula sheet, then you have to memorize the formulas yourself. I would just keep writing them down until I memorize them all, and then I would memorize them in the order that I wanted to write them down on my exam. So then on the exam, I didn't have to be like, okay, what was that formula again? But before the exam started, I had already written them down on my test paper, so I can just flip back and be like, oh yeah, this was the formula. Don't need to waste my time and memory trying to remember it. For my linguistics IPA quiz, I literally just memorized the whole IPA chart and then wrote the entire IPA chart on my exam. So I actually on the exam didn't really have to do much but flip my paper over and see, okay, where is this letter on the chart, copy it into the answer hole, and then I was like, this is so great. It's so much easier that way rather than like doing flashcards and trying to remember everything. I like the whole just memorize the entire piece of paper thing and then you're good. But yes, so that was the video. Hopefully it has helped you all. Definitely, I think studying and learning is different for everyone. So if you're going into online school this fall, you definitely have to figure out what works best for you. You can try out my methods, but you can also try out other methods and just see what helps get you the best grades possible. So yeah, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos. I post every single Sunday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, so definitely check back then for a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and make sure to check out Study Hall College Consulting if you're interested, but I will see you all next time.